all you, Matt.
All right, so I had the first thing. So I want to give an update on the security allocation in the issue. It's kind of I put a link here to what's kind of the latest status. So there's something like officially 77 issues that are still open. That number, kind of hard to judge if that's because a lot of those are already assigned and being worked on. Currently, our team specifically is working on 9 of those, 1 code review and then 8 other ones. I think there's about 19 that are not assigned yet for the backend team. So that number's dwindling down. And then kind of the latest is that kind of Tim and others executives have been kind of looking at what's the exit criteria and what's the next steps. So they asked all the teams that are involved to provide what are our priorities, or what would we be doing kind of if we weren't doing security allocation, kind of what's on the backlog or what's being held up by the security allocation. They're going to use that information to help decide how to kind of exit the security allocation. Yeah, I think those are the big things. Carrie went through and triaged a number of the issues and put the right labels on them. There are some front-end issues that were in there that hadn't been being looked at because it was all back-end so far, but so they're going to start talking to seeing what to do about front-end issues as well. I don't know if there was any for our team or not. I haven't looked. Oh yeah, we're slowly getting through these issues and burning them down. So that's the good news. And we're talking now about kind of what are the next steps and how we get out of the security allocation. Anyone have questions about any of that?
Do you have the query for the front end stuff?
Yeah, I can.
Carrie, since you're here, if you have one.
Yeah, Carrie looked through all the ones that didn't have labels, I think, didn't have front end or back end. And then she was kind enough to add the right labels for us. But I'll, as we're talking here, I'll put the link to the front end labels in the agenda here when I build it up. The queries there's a lot of labels and filters, and it's like, it is dev, it is security, it's not a feature, it's not Giddily, it's not deprecation, it is front end in this case. So I'll get that all set up. I'll edit one of my existing queries and put it here.
Yeah, thanks. I'd just be curious what we're looking at there, so we can, if there is anything for our group, so we can think about that too.
Yeah.
Cool. I appreciate the update. I know it is not fun to report on or fun to work on or easy to communicate. So thanks for updating us each week.
Of course.
With what you know.
No problem. Yeah, my pleasure.
Annabelle, I think you've got the next one.
Right. So I just wanted to maybe walk through a little bit about what I've been working on for the selectively loading MR diff when following a comment link. I think we need a better title for that because I always forget it. I'm going to share my screen and kind of go through what we were starting with and then what I posted yesterday in this potentially needlessly complicated flow. I think it might be really simple, and I just want to get a gut check on this. Okay, so the original design that we had for this was, wait, is this big enough? Does that work? We would show the file that comment came from, we would sort of block the rest of the files in the tree. And then if you tried to navigate to another file via shortcut, via keyboard shortcut, or from clicking next unresolved thread, you would get a toast that says, you can't right now, you're viewing a single file, because that's kind of, we're just kind of blocking everything except for that file. And then if you want to go to a different file, then you click view all files and you go back to that original mode where you can see everything as usual. And this is very similar to the way that like Imager and Reddit work, which I think was kind of the basis for this issue anyway. And then there were some comments about how it's a lot like single file mode, because it is, we're showing one file. But since we have that option already built into the product, we were trying to discuss how we can make the two kind of work together without duplicating this experience in two very different ways. So I was wondering if we, instead of blocking everything like I had originally, if you follow that comment link, you end up getting to here, which is the file. Everything is still available in the file tree and you can still navigate between files, but you're going to have this persistent alert that's fixed to the top of the screen at all times. That only happens if you have your regular multi-file mode enabled. If you have single file mode enabled, nothing changes. You're not going to get that alert and you're going to be directed to that file as usual. And then you can kind of do what you want to do, go to all these different files, but you're still going to be in the single file mode. That might be confusing and I might not be explaining it right. So I have this little chart. So you click on the link, we check the file preference. If it's single file mode, nothing changes, you see that file. If it's multi-file mode, which is the default, we're kind of going to force that single file mode with the fixed banner. And then you can exit at any time by clicking view all files, and then you go back to usual. If you navigate to another file, you're still in that halfway single file mode, but you can exit at any time. Does that make sense at all?
That's my cue. Yes, it does. I love this. There's a couple of details of implementation that we might want to split this into two steps. Because for example, the single file mode, not changing anything, it would mean that currently when you go into a single file mode, we're still requesting all the batch diffs. We're still going through all the batch diffs until you get the actual file, then we display that. Until then you're waiting. So there's no benefit there. Looking at this chart, what this does, it would be like the multi-file mode would be much faster than the single file mode. So I think at least we should have two issues for implementing. One, the multi-file mode first, then going back to the single file and building that improvement as well, to only requesting that one file. Two separate things, doesn't block one, doesn't block the other. But yeah, I like this as long as the fixed warning stays there. It cannot be dismissed, so it's always there. I feel like it's a good enough warning so that we won't have a riot in our hands of users complaining that they missed a file to be reviewed because they just followed a link or something. So I think as long as that's very visible, I love it. Do you know what I'm getting at, Annabelle?
I do, and that's kind of, yeah, that's kind of the way we went in the first one, where like you can't do anything at all because you have followed that link, and it's so clear because you can't do anything else, which has its pros. You can't see any other files, you can't navigate, you just have to, you know that you're not going to miss anything. So yeah, there are pros and cons to both, I think.
Can you show me the screenshot for the final result with the file tree open? Again, the list of files comes in the metadata request, so that's good. We still have all the information we need to build that. The batch diffs are just like the diff lines. Right. Yeah. Question, should we style differently the files that are not being loaded? Just to tweak opacity or whatever? No?
Well, in this version, they're all available. They're all loaded. This merge request only had 2 changed files.
Oh, okay. So when you click on it, it will load them. Okay.
Yeah, the original
Sure.
one only loaded the one, and it says
Oh,
you're
right,
viewing a
right,
single
right.
file.
Okay. No, okay. That makes sense. It's still accessible to them. They just got the benefit of being faster. Yeah, I love it. Thanks. And thanks for saying Imgur instead of saying Imgur, as some people call it. That's it.
Kai, you're frowning a lot. Do you have any thoughts?
Oh, it's like a
Imgur.
resting face. I don't know. I like this. Sorry. Sorry for looking upset about it. No, I like it. I was thinking through a few things while Andre was talking. One, I was thinking about the diff loading because one of the reasons we had talked about this was performance. And if we still have to go request all the diffs, like that feels like a thing we need to solve sort of upfront. The other thing I was thinking about is one of the things we know from people is that often they leave a comment after they create their merge request, which is, hey, blah, 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 blah. Would you please review this merge request? The to do for that is a link to a specific comment, but it's not on the changes tab. It's on the overview tab. And so like, I'm sort of curious, like what that behavior, I assume we would still link you to the overview tab. And so like, we're really only specifically talking about comments to the changes tab, but I don't actually know if we give direct links to the changes tab or if we always give links to conversations on the overview tab. And so now I'm like wondering about the feasibility of this sort of at all.
Yeah, I didn't even check that. I didn't consider that. I forgot that we do the overview tab. So we should check that.
But the link
I
is
think-
different.
I think
Go ahead,
it's
Peter.
it's the overview. It always links to, at least in email notifications. It's always, to me, the one examples I'm seeing always link to a note in the overview tab.
Yeah, and so that was sort of my thought was like I was thinking about regular comments, but now I'm like thinking through the whole thing. Like I actually don't know if we could even do this because we don't send links to the diffs tab.
which is not to say that they're not used, because we've seen the usage. It's 20% of traffic with that link. So
Yeah, I
there's
think that's
different
like
links.
if I like copy one and give it to you in Slack, but the primary use case of like someone gets a to do or gets a something else is like sort of lost here.
Kind of, because then I think there's a bigger question, because after you get a comment on the overview tab for a diff, so the diff comments on the changes tab shown on the overview tab still have a link for the changes tab, and you follow that link. The question
When you
is
get
whether
to do or an email, you follow a link to the overview tab.
correct, and then you go to the overview tab instance of that comment. But if it's a diff comment, you still have the lines changed, and if you click the file name on that, why am I not sharing the screen? You still get a link to the diffs tab, correct? The question is, will we still want to load the only file, or if you come from the overview tab, you will want to load the entire thing, or force the user to go click again to see it? Let me share the screen so I can talk about, this is the last point of the agenda, so I think we have some time to.
You froze for me.
Yeah, video too. Oh, there we go. No, we got 2 frames.
Yeah, I know. My PC is dying. Oh my God.
It's exciting.
Yeah.
Sorry, all. I don't know what's happening, but my computer is dying.
Oh, we have audio again. That's good.
Almost like OBS is resource intensive or something.
Yeah, it's actually a good point. My computer fans spin up to very high speed, just having Zoom running, even in the background, not even if I'm not on a call. So plus OBS would be, I don't think it'd work.
Just for reference, when I was designing this, I was under the impression, without looking into it at all, I was thinking to-dos and email notifications. I was thinking those comments directed you right to the diff, and that's what I would find ideal. And then if you're looking at the overview tab, you see that comment pointing you to the diff again, that would just render the all your files. It wouldn't be a single file.
I would have sworn that I'd gotten to-dos that linked right to diffs, but I guess I can't find any in my to-dos list, so I guess they all go straight to the overview tab. I don't know.
Yeah. So where does the 20% comes from? Is it people jumping from either giving, the link directly and visiting it, or from the overview tab going to changes tab? Because when Phil demoed the proof of concept, he was experimenting with the links that go from the overview tab to the changes tab. When you're looking at a thread, that's what he was using for his proof of concept. And I didn't even check the emails or to-dos because I thought, well, I mean, 20%. Yeah, I think as everyone was assuming that it was also the case. Recently, we released that feature that allows you to compare the changes that were made to that outdated a thread inline, right? So that could reduce the number of times that people have to go to the changes tab when looking at a thread on the overview tab. Yeah, Andre, you're back. I don't know if you want to attempt sharing.
I'm just embarrassed. I'm sorry.
No need to be. Don't worry.
Yeah, I heard glimpses of that. Somebody mentioned the OBS. OBS was doing fine. It was just Firefox was eating all the RAM for some reason. Crazy. Anyway, so what I was going at is like you link the to-dos link to the overview tab, and then if it's a diff comment, you have a link to the changes tab. We're on board, right? Now, I don't know, I'm not entirely sure if we'll be able to distinguish that link from the overview tab. Well, we are, but the question is, do we want to distinguish the behavior of someone who follows the link on the overview tab versus the one that follows the link shared by someone directly to the changes tab? I'm guessing no, right? It should be the same behavior. So basically the question is, when you click the overview tab, you go to the changes tab, should we still just load the one file for that discussion or not?
I don't think so. I think once you're in the merge request, you should always show all the files. I don't like the idea of following a link from the overview and only rendering one file.
Okay. Okay. We should put that in the issue so that we don't forget.
Andre, what I was saying, I don't know if you were here already, is that with this new information that has come to light, the 20% may not take into account the feature that we released to view changes inline in an outdated thread. So users may actually be using that now and not having to go to the changes tab at all and clicking on that started a thread on the diff, that link that goes.
Yep.
So they may not be using that much. So I wonder if we should see how the data evolves now that we have that. And if it keeps being around 20% or even 10% or something like that, we need to investigate.
That's only for the outdated, right, Pedro?
Yes.
The
correct.
new feature is only present on the outdated threads.
Yes. Yep.
Yeah, I'm happy to revise the numbers. I can't remember where we got it from. If it was some analytics. Yeah, I think. Kai, do you have access to those? We had a dashboard, didn't we?
I linked it in the meeting agenda, but it's
All over the
showing
place today.
counts of like 1 and 3, which is not entirely useful. So I'd have to go back and look at the queries.
Okay. Okay, let's do that. Let's revise the numbers to make sure that. So, but I think it's important to capture that comment from Annabelle to, if you're in the MR and you follow a link from the overview to the changes tab, we should load the entire MR. Later on, we can see how that experience is and if you still want to load it or not. But yeah, that makes sense to me. The question is whether without that, what's the representativeness of the feature then? Follow. I still use that a lot personally, so I still see the value of developing this, and I don't think it's in terms of implementation. We do have everything from the backend that we need. We have the batch diffs that can take a file as a parameter. So I think we have that. So it should be good to go for implementing and seeing how that goes.
Yeah, I also see the use case for it, even if it could be smaller than what we were expecting. I just think that it may change the priority of addressing this. Not that it would not be useful, but when we would work more on this.
That's fair. Let's look at the numbers again.
Yeah. Kai, do you think it might be possible to also have the referrers there? Or is this Snowplow?
It's Snowplow data, so it has referrers. We looked at yeah, I don't know why these queries aren't working. I'll have to go back and look at them. I think we looked at refers. We looked at like, and that's how, well, we looked at refers to know that it was direct navigation. If there's no referrer, that's how we know it's a direct navigation to the changes tab. And so anything that has a referrer is therefore sort of like the opposite percentage. So like the referred traffic to changes was 80% and non-referred traffic was whatever. And so you get a refer out of any other GitLab place, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So like if you navigate from overview to changes, that we have refer data, and so we weren't including those.
Yeah. But I think that context is important to know where does the traffic come from, even if it's within GitLab.
Yeah, I think most of it came from, yeah, I'll go back and we can relook at it. I think
that's okay.
To me, I think the bigger question is now like, it sort of even doesn't matter what the percentage is. If the impact is even at 20%, it sort of seemed like, well, it's 20%, but like, I think I and Annabelle and Pedro had potentially thought about this as like the most common navigation path being to-dos and email notifications. And that's sort of now not the navigation, not like what's possible today. And so maybe this isn't really that important unless we really think we want to change the comment to do and email notification navigation path to go directly to the changes tab. And that's probably a much larger conversation and discussion and gets back into the whole, like, why do we have an overview and a changes tab? Like, why are there two different tabs to begin with that show the same information? And it's maybe opens up a different can of worms.
Yeah. Probably it's easier to add another link to the email and be done with it. Let the users choose. It'd be like Marissa Meyer counting the words on Google's page, Google's front page. We'll be counting the links on the emails.
Yeah.
Okay, let's look at the data again with the refers and all of that, and we can then make a more appropriate response. That's my suggestion. I mean, reiterating other suggestions that have been made.
Okay, if we have a couple of minutes, do we want to discuss Phil's comment on this issue? This is the in-product survey. He has some concerns.
Yeah, just this is reiterating what we discussed 2 weeks ago, I believe, here in this call. I brought it up here after he brought it up with me in the one-on-one. He still feels strongly about, he still feels iffy, to put it in a colloquial English, about doing this. It feels really contrary to what we've been doing. And he just wanted to raise this again to the crowd. So yeah, does anybody have thoughts about whether collecting this sort of data is compliant with legal stuff? And second, how are we displaying this to user? It feels invasive and that sort of thing. So he has some questions. Somebody has thoughts?
So originally, so the tracking, and it would be opt-in. So meaning that we would only
The tracking is opt-in or the survey is opt-in?
the survey is opt-in, and it's anonymous in the sense that we can't tie the data back to a specific user.
Can't we?
And yeah.
I mean, well, we won't, but we technically could, right? We'll collect. Here's the thing: we're collecting the data, and this is a detail. We're collecting the data per device, but we're dismissing the warning of the survey by user. That was discussed on the issue, if I remember correctly. But I wasn't aware that we wouldn't be tracking per user. I think the idea was to get the number of days that user had visited an MR page in the past 30 days. That was the metric. So it's not per user. It's like how many times that browser visited the MR page in the last 30 days, whichever the account. Okay, but then the feeling on the user might still be, I'm logged in, I'm clicking on a link to a survey, and I'm seeing this number in the URL for like, what is this? I think that's the feeling that we're not so comfortable about. See where we're coming from, Pedro? Is that clearer?
Yes.
Because we know we're not doing it, we're doing it anonymously, but it's like we're still collecting that data and putting it in a way that it's visible.
The survey, when it comes through, is not linked to a user. It's a response that will say like whoever filled out this survey, but I don't think we get any additional data about that user in the survey.
That's
And
true.
we don't get any.
Okay.
Like there's no way to tie that. To
No
something.
user, no nothing when they opens the page. Okay. Now, one of the things that we discussed was this, like, is it worth causing that iffy feeling of why is this number here in the, like, I don't know if it's in the form, if it's visible on the form. Is that important of a metric to risk having such a negative, because we've had negative impact, negative reaction to telemetry cases in the past. And we're collecting this sort of like very highly customized metric on something that is not, again, I understand once we go into the form, it's not tied to them, but now they know that we know. They know that we're tracking that. They might not even be able to tell what that number is. And the question then came, is it that big of a metric to justify risking that? Or are we just overthinking this whole thing? Because we brought this up twice already. And we're over time. I'm sorry. Anyway, I guess we should move this discussion to asynchronous to the issue.
Might be worth.
Yeah, let's do that.
Okay, take some time to read through that and share our thoughts.
When we have tracking.
Go ahead,
things-
Thomas. Before we drop, Thomas, did you want to say something?
Yeah, just quickly, when we have tracking things, usually it's like we have gotten most of the way through implementation. It becomes public, it hits Hacker News or something, and then that's when we get all the negative feedback. So it might be good if we can to figure out some sort of user research on this. Like, hey, what do you think if you saw this in the URL kind of thing? Because like that's what we're discussing, right?
You're researching the research method, which
Right.
is,
Yeah. Like if you saw this in the URL
It's
for a
really
survey or whatever,
weird.
what would you think? Yeah, I don't know.
which goes back to our point. Is this that meaningful? Like knowing that number, is it that meaningful? Anyway, let's go to the issue. Okay. Thanks everyone for your time on this. We don't want to be naggers, but it feels iffy.
Thanks. See you later.
Thanks everyone.
Bye.
Bye.